Hello and welcome to the Happy Hour Hustle podcast with our host, Kim Bodie.
I am absolutely thrilled to be chatting with you.
Principal and fearless leader of 834 Integrated Communications. On this podcast, you're going to learn a lot about a lot, like public relations, marketing, digital, and advertising.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Forgive us if you hear some dogs in the background. We love them, and there's a medium-sized pack at the office at all times.
Fantastic.
So grab a glass of wine, preferably one with ice in it, and learn a little something today. Hey hustlers, welcome back to our latest installment of Happy Hour Hustle. This week we connected with Vittorio Florio, producer at the Drew Barrymore Show and also our BFF. We talk about all the things like breaking into television, how students can get started in their career early, and how PR pros can stand out to national TV producers. So without further ado, here's our conversation. Hello, welcome to the Happy Hour Hustle podcast, Vittorio. To quickly introduce yourself to our audience, if you want to just, say your name, what your job is, and, how we're best friends, I guess.
Sure. So my name is Vittorio Florio. Yes, that's a real name. It's not fake. I'm a TV producer for the Drew Barrymore Show, and me and Jules are best friends.
I guess. So, we just touched a little bit on it before we started recording, but we know that you have an adorable dog. And can you tell us a little bit more about your dog? Name, age?
Yes. So his name is Nico. He's 4 years old. He has an Instagram page. He's famous. Go follow him at The Sweet Life of Nico. Just
perfect.
Casual plug. But yeah, I say all the time that if I could, I would retire and live on a farm with 100 dogs because it's better. What's better than that? Cats? I could do without, but
fair enough. We kind of feel the same around here. Our producer Ro, as you've met, they love cats. So we're pretty split back here, but there's usually a small pack of dogs at the office at all times.
Dogs just make everything better.
They are just so happy-go-lucky, and
they're just so innocent. Like you can do whatever, and they're just there.
They call them puppy dog eyes for a reason. So
it works.
It just so works. And that's kind of how we felt when we first started talking with you, was we were like fully puppy dog eyes. We're like, we need to become best friends with Vittorio. And here we are. We're chatting on the podcast and we're happy to have you.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So we know that you have been in the TV business for some time now. And just to get us started, what's your favorite part of your job?
I would say for me, I just have a passion for storytelling because at the end of the day, that's really what we're doing. We're trying to tell a compelling story. And, the plus side is we're able to do that with, millions of people watching at home. That's kind of what really kind of seals the deal. And there's so many stories that we get to tell that, you don't even think you're going through something, but you are. And if one person can be impacted by that, you kind of did your job.
Totally. We can definitely relate to that as PR people. We're telling stories through blogs and press releases and pitching, stories to people like you. What is, I guess, one thing that most people don't realize as it comes to your job? Like what comprises of that and how you make these stories come to life?
It's hard. That's the simple answer.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people don't realize is, myself included prior to getting into the business, is there's so much work and detail that goes into whether it be a segment or a 1 hour episode. Those small little details that you wouldn't even think are a big deal to us. And prior to starting the business, we all kind of just think the show happens. There's like an hour that goes into it, but it kind of just happens. When in reality, it's hours and weeks of planning for just that one, 5-minute thing or that 1 hour episode. So I think that's kind of been awesome for me, is kind of seeing it all kind of come into fluidity and kind of see it just happen. And then at the end, it's like, wow, shit, I pulled that off.
I know I saw on your Instagram last week that you had posted, like it never gets old seeing your name on the credits. And I was just like, wow, that's like a very romantic feeling of like, I'm there, I'm doing this, I'm putting this together. And that's so cool that you still get those feelings.
It's so true. And it's when it first happened to me, I kind of like was like, I was like laughing it off. I was like, wait, I was like, let me rewind that.
Hold
Because
on.
on the other side, I would always, watch, whatever shows, and me just wanting to get into the business would kind of look at the back end and be like, oh, who are these names? What are these people's roles? What are they doing? And then to see my name, it was like, I tried to stay very humble about it, but you gotta go.
It's a
You gotta,
pretty big deal.
it was insane. So, and I still honestly sometimes don't believe it. So it's definitely been full circle, and I'm definitely grateful for it.
That's so cool. I guess kind of in that same regard, what was it that inspired you to want to work in TV? Because that's something that you said you like did the research, you figured out who those people were and what their jobs were. What was the one that kind of changed it for you?
Yeah, it's actually funny because I feel like I followed a not so traditional path. I studied business in school. That was just kind of like my thing. It was like the perfect career path, go to school for accounting, work in accounting, make a lot of money, 9 to 5, you're out of there, that sort of thing. And I would say probably like junior year of college, I just started realizing that there was this whole other life. And I always love, lights, camera, action, that kind of like sort of thing. But I never really thought there was an opportunity for me. It was always that like dream job, not necessarily an obtainable job.
Mhm.
So I just started like doing internships and stuff. I got very, very lucky with my internships. And that kind of really just solidified that this is like what I want to do. And I remember always, this is so corny, but I remember always like walking in the city to my regular job, which I had like a regular 9 to 5 job right after college, just because it's hard to kind of break into exactly what you want to do. And I remember always passing by the studio in Times Square and just like, it was a live like morning show and just like watching. And I was like, can I get in there?
Like, help me.
Everyone outside was like waiting to see their favorite anchor or their favorite host. And I'm like just more watching it all kind of come together.
How it all worked.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I don't know how, I don't know when, but like, I'm going to do that one day.
You're like, I'm going to make it happen.
It's crazy that it's kind of like full circle again.
It's that like that tenacity and that hustle that it takes to get to the place that you want to be.
Especially in this business, because it's so non-traditional. I think for me and a lot of people in college, in school, you just have that kind of old mentality of it's this career path. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to get this job. I'm going to go here. Like there's no really ladder in this industry. And I feel like even in PR as well, it's kind of just kind of bouncing around and just kind of, you just have to find your way. And it's like, that's what else I love about the job is no 2 days are the same. Every day is different. People are like, what's a day-to-day look like? I don't know. There is none.
Exactly. I remember being in school and like going to like events with PR people, and the professionals would always be like, well, no 2 days are the same. And I was always like, yeah, whatever. And it's so true. I mean, you could go into the day with one plan and everything could turn on its head. And I mean, I imagine in TV, things probably happen at the drop of a hat where you have to just like pivot, figure it out, and move forward with what the new plan is going to be.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's also so interesting is, especially in live TV, thankfully I don't work in news. I don't know how those people do it.
I would lose my hair.
Fun fact, I wanted to do news for the longest time. And then I was like, maybe not.
No.
I don't need to be like sitting on a beach and then something catastrophic happens. Like, yeah, can you come into work in an hour?
You're like, no, actually.
But yeah, there's so many times where you're working on something for, you're working on an episode for a week, 2 weeks out, and then it's the morning of, and your guest cancels. Or suddenly there's a major event, even if you're working in more entertainment, that major event could kind of conflict and you just have to pivot. There's been so many times where the show I was on, live at 10 o'clock in the morning, and at 9 o'clock something happens and you have to pivot right down to the wire. I mean, there's so many stories of, 5 minutes to air and, this went wrong and this needs to be fixed, and really just pivoting, thinking on your feet, and kind of just like, we just have to make it happen. And
Make it happen.
you're at home, can't know what's going on.
Yes, that's the thing. I like the TV magic aspect of it. I personally have had the opportunity to sit in for Good Morning America for like a live taping, and it was so interesting seeing how it works while you're just sitting there. Because at home, I mean, you don't see all of the things that actually go into it, like you were saying, and it is a full force. Like it is so many different things, so many different people that are there, and you just like I didn't realize, I guess, how much actually it takes to put into to putting something like that together.
Oh yeah, producers, associate producers, production assistants, cameramen, directors, so like you name it, there's something for everyone. And even like friends and family are always like, how many, producers do you guys have? And depending on the show, I'm like, oh, there's like 13 of us. And they're like, wow, there's not just one producer. I'm like, no,
No.
because there's so much involved in every little aspect. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of planning.
Oh yeah.
Again, to my point, that goes into just that one hit that you see on TV.
Oh yeah. I mean, all the way down to like the hype man for the in studio audience. Like I did not know that was a job. And I think I would like when I retire to perhaps take on that position for myself. But we have some things that we need to get done before then. But I guess before landing your current position at the Drew Barrymore Show, you've worked in other TV settings. You know, what's the biggest change been for you day to day from show to show?
Yeah, I feel like that's a tough question because I just started with the Drew Barrymore during the pandemic. So I've actually never even been to the studio,
That's so crazy.
which is kind of crazy to think, it's all been remote. I used to be with Tamron Hall, and that was in studio, obviously then pivoted to remote. But, I would say the biggest change is the content that's produced. Both shows are classified as daytime talk shows, but the content couldn't be more different. You have Tamron that focuses on more everyday, more intense stories, if you will, serious
Yeah.
topics.
Yeah.
Whereas Drew, it's much lighter, like your lifestyle, your cooking segments, your celebrity segments.
Mhm.
So I enjoyed both of them, but I would say that's kind of the biggest difference. And really, what daytime is all about
Yeah.
is covering all of those different topics and being able to pivot from one to the other.
Absolutely. I mean, kind of to what you were saying. So I guess then what the question should be, you know, what's the difference between pandemic producing and before that? I mean, what like being in person versus being at home, what was the biggest change for you there?
It's actually funny because when the pandemic first started, I feel like all companies, everyone was trying to pivot into this working remote thing, and a lot of people realized that they didn't really need to be in the office. A lot of like customer service roles, a lot of sales roles, things like that. But working in TV, how do you pivot from it being such a hands-on job in studio to remote? So that took a couple weeks for all of the shows to kind of figure out their thing. And then the biggest thing would just be, now it's all Zoom. It's all Zoom, interviewing our guests via Zoom. And, it works. It's not ideal. It's not the same. There's something authentic about having your host and your guest in the same room sharing the story as
Mhm.
opposed to
Through a screen.
through a screen. And there's always that awkward moment where it's like you talk, there's a delay, and then you talk and they talk, and it's like dead air. And so then obviously the components of a show that's live and the audio doesn't work, the video doesn't work. I've had numerous times. It's probably one of the scariest things as a producer that I didn't think I'd have to experience is we're about to go to this next guest live and their video cuts out. And now we essentially don't have a segment. So
What does one do in that situation? Like, do you cut to something you've already done?
you tell your host start talking for the next 3 minutes, or you just go to the next guest. It's just a lot of those like
Yeah.
thinking quick and making those rash decisions. And it all works out, we're doing it. But it's definitely been an interesting challenge that I haven't been in the business that long, only a few years. I'm not that old. um, but people who have seasoned have been in the business for 20 plus years. So this is all new to them as well. So it's definitely really interesting to be in this time.
I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, we all know what it's like to be on Zoom all the time, and I can't wait personally to
Oh, I hate it.
not have to do
You want to
that.
hop on a Zoom? It's like Not really.
Want versus need is a big a big decipher there.
And I feel like nobody knew what Zoom was before,
No,
right?
it was like Skype before this.
Yep, it was Skype.
It was totally Skype.
All the people who aren't tech savvy, the older generation, if you will, it was just funny to see everyone kind of adapt. And then there's always that weird thing. It's like, oh, you're like sisters walking in the background, or
Yup. There's a TikTok going around right now where a guy got like a green suit so that when the background is up, he could just walk through his girlfriend's background and not be seen. And you could totally see his outline, and it is hysterical.
I love that. No, that's so funny. That's the other funny part I will say about producing guests virtual is I had this one guest. We always go over like this sounds crazy that we even need to say this, but if you have a house phone, make sure your house phone is off. If you're expecting packages, make sure there's a sign on your door that not to ring the doorbell. If you have a barking dog, and the most common one obviously is please keep your family members
Out.
out of the room. So my luck, I said that, and during the live shot, the husband was walking to the kitchen to make his cup of coffee, and we're all just like
You're like,
losing
sir?
because there's nothing we can do. We're live. I can't be like, oh, can you move? Otherwise,
Right. Oh,
that kind of
gosh.
thing. It's been, yeah.
Man. Well, I guess that's kind of a good way to segue into my next question is, with the two different shows that you've worked so closely on, you cover a lot of different topics. What's your favorite to cover? Like a lifestyle, human interest, celebrity, telling those different kinds of stories. There's different aspects to each of them, but I mean, which one's your favorite, I guess?
I would say for me, I like it all. I like the ability to produce a variety of topics. But some producers do have their specialty topics, whether it be political news, sports, crime. Those are things that don't interest me. And I think it's so important for producers to do something that interests them. Like I can never produce anything sports related or political news because it's just not something I'm passionate about. And
Mhm.
it with so much creativity that goes into the job, if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to succeed. And that's really with anything, but I feel like specifically this, for me, I mean, who doesn't love producing a good celebrity?
Right.
I would do that any day, but again, that's very like, mainstream. I would say for me, it's definitely the more human interest stories. There's been a few that I've done where I know have made an impact because people have like wrote into the show. I did a whole show on like opioid addiction, and someone tweeted in saying, I saw the show and I'm no longer using because of, that little thing was like
That is powerful.
so powerful. And it's like that thing, like, are people actually watching? Is it
They
actually
are
making an impact?
though.
And they are. And to kind of hear those kinds of stories really bring it together. But yeah, those are the human interest stories are definitely my favorite. We have this little thing we call our Drew Gooders with Drew Barrymore, which are like our segments that we do with people who are giving back to the community, doing good deeds. We had this one great story of everything that was going on in Texas a couple months ago with the crazy weather. This restaurant owner still had power, and he was just cooking for his community. He was like one of the only restaurants in the area that had power. He was just like cooking everything.
That's incredible.
We had him on, and we actually surprised him with an 18-wheeler filled of food, over like 15,000 pounds of food that we drove to him to kind of help. It was our way of giving back.
See, that's incredible. Those are the stories that like pull at the heartstrings.
Oh,
And I mean,
absolutely.
as a PR person too, those are the favorite ones as well. I mean, we have some clients where they're doing so much good in our local communities, and you want for them to have all of the news cover it because they deserve it, because they're putting in the time and the effort, and they're just so deserving of it. So that's so cool, and I can definitely relate.
And those are the ones you're not hearing about. You're not hearing about those stories because they're not your
Yeah,
mainstream.
they're not the flashy stories that usually get people's attention. No, I
Exactly.
completely get that. So I guess then, for specifically for you, can you explain to people what a trade out producer is?
Yeah, so it's funny because I didn't even know what that was several years ago. But on top of obviously producing the variety of topics like we discussed. Part of being a trade up producer is I work a lot with brands to connect them with our viewers through, organic placement, audience giveaways. A lot of times you see, your favorite brand on a show, and then, the infamous Oprah days, all Oprah's
You get
favorite
a
things.
car.
Oh, you get. I wish I could give everyone a car, but like that, but like that kind of thing. Really
Yeah.
connecting with the brands in an authentic way, so it doesn't really feel forced.
I was gonna say, because that was when we first connected. I think that was what I was so drawn to about the opportunity outside of it being Drew freaking Barrymore. It was that she actually liked the product, and it just felt so genuine in how everything kind of fell together.
Well, that's what's so important is it can't feel forced.
Mhm.
If your host isn't behind it, then what's the point?
It just feels like a Vanna White kind of like, here you go kind of moment.
Yep, they like very game showy, like Price is Right type thing.
Yeah, I guess so. With the brands that you connect with, how do you manage that on top of your, other work that you're actually putting the show together? How does that work with your day to day of like, do you get up in the morning, look at your emails, connect with brands, do that, and then start the show stuff? How does that look?
Yeah, that's a great question because especially lately, I feel like I've been getting more and more. I feel like my email just gets like sold in the world around the world because the people that reach out to me, I'm like, where?
How'd you find me?
Yeah, and I can't keep up, but I try to find time, a little bit in the morning, and then kind of at night. Honestly, is when I just scroll through it because during the day, I do try to pay very close attention and read all of them, but I don't have the time, obviously, and it's hard to kind of weed out the ones that are actually of interest to myself and from a show perspective. But yeah, I mean, in the morning, at night, whenever I really have a couple minutes, I just
To get to it?
respond to as many people as I can.
For sure. So then how do you weed out the PR people who just like don't get it, or, the ones who have done their research? Is it just very blatant for you to see that?
Absolutely. It's hard to explain, but I feel like you just know when, I could tell that you've never watched the show and you're pitching something that just wouldn't be a fit for the show, or you're pitching something that is more for print, and not TV, or, things like that. And I feel like people don't realize, like, think how many pitches you're sending out. I am receiving
That
those
many.
pitches.
Yep.
And I think they need to be to a certain degree customizable. If you're sending me a generic pitch that has nothing to do with the show, you're wasting you're wasting more so your time because you're just not going to get a response from me.
Absolutely.
It's annoying, honestly.
It is. And I think far too many people, PR practitioners, do the like spray and pray method of like, I'm just going to send this one pitch out to 100 different people, when in actuality, like, they're just not going to read it. You're not going to hear back. You're going to hear back from maybe two of your 100 on that list. And are they the ones that you actually wanted to connect with?
That, and it's also like, at least, again, I get that you guys don't even have time to customize all of them because you are sending 100 in hopes to just two of them to make traction or whatever the case is. But at least get a sense of the outlet you're sending it to,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
don't send something that's made for print to a national show or something that's more on
Exactly.
like a local news. Like, you just have to have an idea of the content and know what you're sending.
Well, and also I think a common mistake of PR practitioners is like mail merging, where like you could be sending something to like one network and completely mess it up, and that's on you, and it just makes you look bad as a PR person. Like, my goal is always to create lasting relationships like how we are talking right now. I mean, is every one of my clients going to be a fit for you? Absolutely not. But the one that was, it worked out. And here we are having this conversation now. So, I mean, I'm excited to just continue making like genuine, authentic relationships with media people, and making it work for them.
Oh yeah, it makes all the difference. Like, I would say like a handful of people. Yes, you guys are one of them. That that you just you just have that good rapport with, and you can go to when you need something. There's a lot of PR firms that I know if I need something quick, I'm just going to go to them because they're going to have it, or they're going to direct me to someone that does.
Mm-hmm.
And then that weeds out the people who I just know are just don't understand the show and don't know what we want, what we're looking for. And it really shows in the pitches. And those are the ones that just aren't gonna be a fit.
So I guess knowing that the Drew Barrymore Show has been picked up for season 2, what are you excited about bringing to the show? Any sneak peeks or fresh ideas that you're excited about for season 2?
I would say the main one definitely, as I mentioned earlier, is being in the studio. I mean, I'm sure so many people have started a job in the pandemic, and for me, it's just so weird that I haven't physically been there. So that's definitely something that I am personally excited for. And again, part of the excitement of working in TV is being on set, seeing it all play out. Just that adrenaline that I honestly can't describe. It's just something I feel. That isn't something I get remotely. So that for me, on a personal level, on a show level, hopefully, I don't know. I haven't heard any word on if live studio audiences will return for shows, but hoping that's the case. And I think that'll be something that we really stand out, because Drew launched the show in the pandemic. She never had a studio audience. I think that's something that she'll really kind of vibe off of.
Yeah, it'll bring a whole new kind of energy to the show.
For sure. I mean, I'm sure you've been to, shows with audiences, and you kind of it's just, you get that feeling too.
You feed off of that for sure.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely something, we have our virtual audience, but I think getting an in-studio audience will be something that all shows are excited to return, but for us to just have for the first time.
Well, and just with Drew's personality in general, she does such a good job feeding off of any of her guests that are Zoom or in person. And from what I've seen, I think that's just going to go blast through the roof. It's going to just go off the charts once she has actual studio audience there.
Oh, 100%. And also bringing back our guests. For me, I feel like when I watch the morning shows or the night shows, and I see another Zoom interview, I'm just I'm not interested.
It just feels tired at this point.
It does. And those rare times where someone does come in the studio, it's oh shit, I need to watch.
Honestly, the Demi Lovato one that you guys just did where she was in studio, that was already a heavy topic. But then on top of that, it just seemed so much more emotional because they were there connecting with one another.
Fun fact on that, and I think this is public, so I'm going to say it. She actually was not there.
She wasn't?
No. So we have this crazy, crazy technology that
here's the TV magic.
only, I don't know how they do it. Drew's the only one. This crazy technology, and she was actually in another location. And
I would have never known.
Right? With the technology, they were able to copy the set and duplicate it so it looked as if they were sitting next to each other. And
my God.
Same thing for the premiere episode when we had the Charlie's Angel. I wasn't at the show at the time, but Charlie's Angels reunion, Lucy Liu and Cameron Diaz. Lucy Liu was in the studio, Cameron Diaz was not. But you see all three of them on the set. It's crazy technology. But to your point, you at home think of it as her being there, and it brings a different perspective as opposed to
totally. Wow, I was completely fooled. Would have never known. Oh my God. Well, I guess to wrap this up, I want to ask you, we at 834, we're a parent agency to the PR team at Grand Valley State University here in West Michigan. And I know you're passionate about helping students. What would you say to students who have an aspiration to get into TV, specifically national TV? What are the steps for them to get started on that hustle?
Yeah, it's funny because, again, there aren't really steps. I wish there were. Network. I always make jokes. I'm my picture was probably posted in all the major media, like, this kid is emailing for the seventh time this week. Let's not like. So there's really that fine balance between being assertive and being annoying.
Yes.
Just network. No, like,
Mhm.
find out where you want to work or where you want to intern. Internships are huge. There's not in this industry. There's nothing in school that you're going to get. You really need to just do internships. That's really
Yeah.
what's going to get you those connections. Get in front of those people. Meet with those people. Look at people on LinkedIn. Reach out to them. Send cold emails. Informational interviews. I wish I knew sooner. Like, I knew about that in like senior year of college. I was like, what
Oh,
the heck?
yeah.
Informational interview. I did hundreds of those from the time I graduated to like where I am now. Hundreds of those. Like, people are more than willing to talk to you and like talk about themselves. I mean, let's
That's
face
the
it.
thing. People love to talk about themselves. And I mean, I'm one and the same. We love to say.
Yeah, and let's face it. Everyone knows that your end goal of an informational is to get a job. But what better way to know about what you want to do than to talk to somebody who's doing it?
Exactly. No, I completely agree.
Show, hey, can I shadow you? Like,
Mhm.
maybe it's not like for a job right now, but can I just shadow you, watch what you do, see what you do, ask questions.
Yes. I could not agree more. I tell students all the time, like, reach out to somebody. If they have the job that you want in the future, just talk to them. Be their friend. Like, figure it out because
And
that's
that's
how
what I
you're gonna
did.
figure it
I
out. Yeah.
remember I remember coldly reaching out to like top level, executive producers of major shows, and half of them never got back to me. But the few that did were willing to give me that 15 minutes phone call in
Exactly.
person. What I'll come to your office. Like, you have absolutely nothing to lose, and people will see that this person really wants it. They're really hungry. They're really interested in getting into it for the right reasons. So
Oh,
many people
yeah.
want to get into the business because they just see the glamorous side. Oh, I'm going to be a celebrity's best friend. Those are people that don't get in or don't last.
Yeah.
Like I said, I worked in a corporate job for a little over a year before I was able to get more into television. And there's so many times where I was like, I wanted to give up, but if you know what you want to do, you need to follow it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's worth it. It's worth it at the end. It really is. That's my philosophical speech.
Seriously, I'm like, are we just like, are we at church right now?
Sunday service.
This is basically Sunday service. Okay. Well, Vittorio, thank you so much. Tell our listeners how they can find you, the Drew Barrymore Show.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Vittorio_Florio. Yes, it's a real name. Watch the Drew Barrymore Show weekdays. Check your local listings at thedrewbarrymoreshow.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.